بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Another important evidence from the known Shia source. And interestingly, this is actually a letter that Muawiyah wrote to Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. In Nahj al-Balagha, the second section of Nahj al-Balagha, as compiled by Sayyid Rizvi, are the letters of Amir al-Mu'minin. And letter number 28 is a very extraordinary letter. To understand that letter, you need to first go and read the letter of Muawiyah. A scholar who came about 2 centuries after Sayyid Rizvi, the compiler of Nahj al-Balagha, a Sunni scholar, a Mu'tazili Sunni scholar by the name of Ibn Abil Hadid Mu'tazili. And there in volume 15, in commentary of this letter of Amir al-Mu'minin, he gives the entire letter of Muawiyah in page number 185 to 187. Timeline, this is a time when Muawiyah, Amir al-Mu'minin had already dealt with the people of Jamal in Basra. Now he is settled in Kufa as his capital. Siffin has not yet happened. He sent an ambassador by the name of Abu Umama al-Bahili with a letter. And the way he wrote the letter was actually, he has some very shrewd politicians around him as his advisors. And in that letter, Muawiyah began by praising the Prophet and his achievements. And then he praises the achievements of the first 3 Khulafa. And then he grades them. He says, after Rasulullah, the best in the Ummah is the first Khalifa. And then the second is the second Khalifa. And the third is the third Khalifa. We were looking for the evidence of the tragedy which took place after Rasulullah, the attack on the house of Fatima. Muawiyah, basically, in trying to provoke Amir al-Mu'minin, then he says, you are jealous of the 3 Khulafa. You revolted against them. You refused to do bay'at. But then Muawiyah comes to what I call the height of provocation. Writes something where he was sure Ali will react emotionally, aggressively. He says, referring to the days of the first Khalifa after Rasulullah's wafat, he says, you refuse to pledge allegiance. Remember, this is in the context, it says, you are asking me to do bay'at to you. Muawiyah is saying to Ali. He says, you refuse to pledge allegiance to the first Khalifa. حَتَّى حُمِلْتَ إِلَيْهِ قَحْرًا. Until you were brought to him forcefully. This is one sentence. How? تُسَاقُ بِخَزَائِمِ الْإِخْتِصَارِ كَمَا يُسَاقُ الْفَحْلُ الْمَحْشُوشِ. You were brought to the Khalifa forcefully while you were dragged with the strong rope like a camel is dragged with the rope on the noose string. Look at the example he's giving. The way people, drag the camel. He says, you were dragged at that time to come to the Khalifa to pledge allegiance. And this is where I would say, those who say, oh, nothing happened on that day. Everything was fine. One of the prominent contemporary Sufi scholars says, oh, ye to sheer o shakar the ye log. Koi jhagda hi nahi tha. Everything was fine. They were okay with what happened. Well, what does Muawiyah say here? That Ali is being forcefully brought, dragged like a camel is being dragged with the rope which is attached to the nose string of the camel. And this is where we have to realize this is not from a Shia source. It's not a Shia writing. This is, at least the Wahhabis call him Amir Sham, isn't it, in Urdu? He's your Amir. This is what he is describing. He is taunting Amirul Mu'mineen. That you asking me for bay'at? Remember the day you were being dragged in this way? And this is where we have to realize this is about the day when the house of Fatima was attacked. But let us see what is the response of Ali to that part of the letter. In the letter of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, Ali does not deny what Muawiyah had written. If this had not happened, Amir al-Mu'mineen could have very easily say, you know, what nonsense you're talking about. But no, Ali doesn't say, you know, this didn't happen. He says, قُلْتَ إِنِّي كُنْتُ أُقَادُ كَمَا يُقَادُ الْجَمَلُ الْمَقْشُوشِ حَتَّى أُبَايِعِ. You have said that I was dragged like a camel with a nose string to swear allegiance. وَلَعُمْرُ اللَّهِ لَقَدْ أَرَدْتَ أَن تَضُمَّ فَمَدَحْتَهُ. By Allah, you intended to disgrace me by this statement, but you actually praised me in it. وَإِن تَفْضَحْ افتضحته. And you wanted to humiliate me, but you will be humiliated yourself. How? He says, وَمَا عَلَى الْمُسْلِمِ مِنْ غَضَاضَةٍ مِنْ أَنْ يَكُونَ مَظْلُومًا مَا لَمْ يَكُنْ شَاكًّا فِي دِينِهِ. Because there is no blame on a Muslim to be mazloom and oppressed as long as he is still firm on his iman and his faith. Ali is describing himself as a mazloom in that situation. He says, you're trying to disgrace me. You are not disgraced me. I am mazloom. Disgraced is the zalim, not me. And this is more than enough for us. That when we see this letter of Muawiyah, and Amir al-Mu'mineen not denying what happened, and this is where we have to realize, you know, this whole issue, how could this have happened? Prominent Sahaba, you know, we are being very careful in how I'm presenting this. We don't want to use any abusive terms. But historical events and realities cannot be forgotten, especially at a time when we have people who actually create doubts about it.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد